Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new half-term F1 review featuring me, Jack Millington from the S-Team. Mikey won't be here with us for this because he's off gallivanting around getting some new information and some new features ready for the S-Team in the next coming months. What this half-term review of the F1 includes is that the first races of the season up to Hungary this year, I'll be reviewing each team individually in special episodes numbered from 1 to 11, and today, or rather in this first one, we're going to be starting off reviewing with Caterham. Now, Caterham started off this season with a brand new driver lineup completely from last year. They brought in Kamui Kobayashi, who, as we all know, is one of the most aggressive drivers on the grid and is quite the star, in fact getting a podium at Japan in his home Grand Prix in 2012. So a man with experience alongside Marcus Ericsson, who is new to the season, new to F1, and at the first race in Australia, things seemed to be going okay for Caterham. They were within a good gap of Russia during qualifying, but sadly it didn't work out that way in the race. Kamui Kobayashi obviously spectacularly crashing into Massa at the first corner, and that ended his race along with Massa's. Secondly, Marcus Ericsson, who was running with the Russes at some point, he was running with Chilton at that point. Sadly, he then ended up retiring due to an oil pressure leak in his Caterham during the 27th lap. Things then got a little bit better for Caterham. They finished ahead of Marussia for the first time in the season, obviously second race in. Kamui Kobayashi and Ericsson, they came 13th and 14th respectively, a lap and 2 laps down. They performed quite well. They were quicker than Russia that weekend. It was probably the only time so far this year that they've been convincingly ahead of Marussia. But sadly things didn't work out that well through the rest of the season, with Caterham again struggling with Ericsson during another oil leak. And Kobayashi ended up finishing near the back of the grid in 15th, some 25 seconds behind. And bear in mind there was a safety car at that point, which bunched the whole field together, and sadly Kobayashi couldn't keep up with them. Chinese Grand Prix, again, more problem. Well, not so much problems for Caterham, but they weren't exactly on the pace. I mean, Kobayashi finished ahead of Chilton. The problem with Chilton is that he is arguably the slower of the two out of Bianchi and Chilton. But again, Caterham managed to get to the end of the Grand Prix, which is well deserved because they went through a tough time in that race. But their biggest chance was coming soon, and just before that in Spain, again they didn't seem to have the ability to keep up. I mean, they finished 2 laps down. Well, Ericsson finishes 2 laps down, and Kobayashi retired because of brake failure. And it's reliability issues like this that have started to worry Tony Fernandez, who was the owner of Caterham at the time, which eventually ended up leading him to remove himself from the team. You felt as if, though, Monaco was their greatest chance to get anything, and sadly for Caterham, they couldn't pull that off. They were in a point scoring position with Kobayashi until Bianchi forced himself up the inside at Raskas, and after that Kobayashi sort of fell by the wayside and he finished 3 laps down, and Ericsson finished a lap down in 11th, tantalisingly close to Magnussen, who came 10th in that race, so close to getting their first points in F1, but just couldn't pull it off. And you felt as if that was their greatest chance to get any points at all this season. They may still have chances later in the year, but we're not too sure about that. Though, if they move to Canada with another possible chance of getting points again, because it was another race of high attrition, but Caterham with reliability problems, Ericsson's turbo went after 7 laps, and then Kamui Kobayashi broke his suspension on the 23rd, and eventually these decisions, especially after Austria, where Caterham performed, even though they beat Gutierrez in the Sauber and Chilton in the Russia, again they were 2 laps down, quite quite far off, but that could be due to the fact that they're using the Renault engines, which have no power really compared to the Mercedes engine and the Ferrari engine in particular that their rivals Marussia and Sauber use. And it's a shame really for Caterham, because that race really exposed them to how much power that Renault engine is producing, and it showed up Renault in general. But eventually there were rumours flying around at the British Grand Prix that Fernandez is going to move, and sure enough he has done, and now Colin Collis is the new general manager, or rather project leader. They've currently put Christian Albers as the so far principal or the head team engineer, ahead of Cyril Abiteboul, who was the man who was in front and in charge of the team day-to-day running anyway. They moved to the British Grand Prix, and Ericsson retired with suspension damage due to an accident that involved Kimi Räikkönen and Massa at the start. Kobayashi ended up finishing 2 laps down, and then from there on, from Germany onwards, the new team and new principal had come in, and there was sort of maybe an upturn in form. Caterham, even though they were a little 2 laps down again, they were a lot closer with Marussia this time. They were battling up there with them, even though Bianchi got the better of them in the end. A much more positive side for Caterham. Although as we come to the final round in Hungary, so far up until the mid-season, Ericsson crashed out, and that was driver error, which you'd expect from a driver from the first season. And Ericsson's done quite well this year, considering the fact that he's a new driver within the team, considering the fact that, the Caterham in those conditions doesn't have, it probably arguably has the least amount of downforce in the wet weather. And then Caterham's miserable weekend was further compounded by the fact that Kobayashi had a problem with his fuel system. Overall, I feel that when you look at Caterham as a whole, although they're showing signs of improvements, they're also going backwards at the same time. It's as if they make 1 step forward and 2 steps back, and they've sort of dropped off Marussia now, and it's almost as if 11th place looks like, unless there's another race of high attrition, it looks as if Caterham are going to be finishing 11th this year, and it's not the progress that any of the Caterham team wanted. But he is hoping for another better year, better end to the year for Caterham, because we all hope that Caterham do well for this season. And if maybe not this year, because with the new regulations, and Caterham have slowly adapted, I feel as if they have slowly adapted to the regulations this year. Maybe next year with the same regulations they'll be a bit more used to it, they might get a lot closer to the main field. But for now, I feel that Caterham could do better. And on that note, let's see how Caterham get on with Kobayashi and Ericsson, who I feel as if those two have done really well. I think Kobayashi is outdriving the car at the minute. He's really put on a good fight to the Marussias and the Saubers arguably as well. Ericsson, felt he's been doing okay, and it is his first season. We're yet to see his true pace, but I'm sure that as the season goes on, he'll get much closer to Kobayashi. But that's it for Caterham. Let's see how they get on for the rest of the season.